All right, today we're stepping straight into the mist-shrouded, incredibly shadowy streets of the Crescent City. We're here to strip back the layers of some of America's absolute most immortal legends. We'll be diving deep into an explainer of a topic that's literally captivated the world for centuries, the mythical vampires of New Orleans. And as you'll see, we're going to look at how these dark, centuries-old tales have morphed into a massive, multi-million-dollar modern-day haunted tourism industry. It's a wild ride.
So it really all starts with one fundamental question, right? Are there real vampires in New Orleans? It's this incredibly enduring mystery that has intrigued true believers, hardcore skeptics, and, well, everyday travelers for generations. In this explainer, we're going to explore exactly how the line between spine-chilling historical folklore and modern everyday reality has become wonderfully, delightfully blurred.
Listen to this quote. New Orleans and vampires are forever linked, thanks to its Gothic architecture, mist-shrouded streets, and vibrant storytelling traditions. I mean, just think about that atmosphere for a second. Imagine towering iron balconies looming overhead, thick fog rolling right off the Mississippi River at midnight, the hiss of gas lamps flickering in the dark. It absolutely establishes New Orleans as the ultimate breeding ground for supernatural tales. It's a city where history doesn't just sit behind glass in a museum. It feels alive, and sometimes undead.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1. Origins of the Lore. A port city's dark secrets.
So the history of New Orleans vampires is actually deeply rooted in the gritty reality of the 18th and 19th centuries. You see, as a major hub for global trade, the city became this massive melting pot. You had these aristocratic old-world vampire myths coming in from France and Spain, actively colliding with indigenous folklore and spiritual practices brought over from the Caribbean and Africa. And all of these incredibly diverse groups were living shoulder to shoulder in tight, isolated quarters. They brought their own unique supernatural beliefs, their fears of the dark, their ancestral ghost stories. When you mix all those distinct cultural fears together in a swampy, disease-prone port city, well, you essentially create the perfect natural habitat for the ultimate vampire legend to take root and absolutely thrive.
Moving right along to Section 2, the infamous Carter brothers.
Now the lore gets incredibly dark when we look at the whispered legends of John and Wayne Carter. These guys were shadowy, secretive figures in New Orleans history. Their names were literally only spoken in hushed tones behind closed doors. Now, according to local myth, the brothers seemed normal enough on the outside, but they hid a terrifying reality. The story goes that a young woman actually managed to escape their apartment, running frantically into the street, and when she finally led authorities back to the brothers' residence, they made a horrifying discovery. They found multiple victims kept chained in absolute secret. But the most chilling part? It's said the bodies were discovered completely, entirely drained of blood. It's tales exactly like this one, gripping, terrifying, and treated as actual local history that completely blur that line between historical fact and horrifying fiction.
And the crazy thing is, these terrifying legends didn't just float in the air. They became permanently attached to physical, real-world landmarks. Like if you walk the French Quarter today, you'll still hear haunting tales surrounding historic buildings like the infamous LaLaurie Mansion. And that's a real place known for its own incredibly dark, factual horrors. Because real atrocities happen there, the public imagination just easily accepted that other, maybe more supernatural evils could exist right next door. You'll hear rumors about secret societies of vampires congregating in the darkest corners of Louisiana's historic estates. The legends literally became baked into the very bricks and mortar of the city.
Which brings us to Section 3, Vampires in Pop Culture.
So we've seen a massive evolution in the lore over the last few decades. Originally, you had the traditional folklore we just discussed, right? Gritty, dark, shadowy port city myths featuring chained victims and terrifying nocturnal predators. But then modern media completely flipped the script. The image of the New Orleans vampire was immortalized and honestly given a highly glamorous romantic twist by Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, starting, of course, with Interview with the Vampire. She basically took the monster out of the shadows and turned it into an alluring, wealthy, tragic anti-hero. Her evocative descriptions of the sprawling Lafayette cemeteries and Garden District mansions absolutely solidified New Orleans as the quintessential vampire city in the global consciousness. And that explosive popularity was followed by massive television hits like the originals. These romanticized versions shifted the vampire from a terrifying local nightmare into a total object of fascination, drawing absolute legions of fans to the Crescent City today.
Next up, Section 4, the Modern Vampire Community.
So while literal blood-drinking immortality isn't exactly on the table, at least I don't think it is, a vibrant society of self-proclaimed vampires absolutely exists in New Orleans today. We're talking about real underground communities made up of everyday people. These individuals have wholly adopted the Gothic aesthetic, complete with custom-made fangs and elaborate Victorian attire. They embrace the lifestyle fully, hosting secret gatherings and masquerades, and often lurking in the shadowy corners of the French Quarter. And whether they view it as a spiritual path, an energetic exchange, or simply a deeply committed subculture, they're actively feeding into the city's myths. By walking the streets in character, they keep that allure alive for wide-eyed visitors from all over the globe who desperately want to catch a glimpse of the supernatural.
All right, let's look at the bigger picture in Section 5, America's haunted tourism industry.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the number you're looking at right now, over 10,000. That is the staggering number of paranormal enthusiasts who have signed up for just one single newsletter, The Haunted Circle, specifically seeking out spooky tales, early access to ghost tours, and exclusive deals. I mean, 10,000 people for just one local mailing list? To put that into perspective, that shows you the sheer incredible volume of people who are desperate to explore the darker side of history, and who are willing to travel thousands of miles just to do it.
This endless human fascination has literally created a massive business of fear. We've completely transitioned from those terrifying whispered legends of blood-drained victims to a highly structured, super successful commercial industry. We're talking French Quarter ghost walks, extravagant underground vampire masquerades, and yes, even bachelorette ghost tours. Because honestly, nothing says I'm getting married quite like hunting for the undead with your bridesmaids, right? They offer 10% newsletter discounts. They sell gift cards for the holidays. It's such a brilliant juxtaposition. They're taking the genuinely morbid folklore of the past and packaging it into the highly commercial and frankly very fun reality of modern haunted tourism.
And here's the thing, this boom isn't just happening in New Orleans. The American hunger for haunted history stretches absolutely everywhere. Up in the misty, dense rainforests of Ketchikan, Alaska, tourists are tracking down Gold Rush ghosts. Down in Chicago, they're doing historical St. Valentine's Day massacre pub crawls to connect with the ghosts of the mobster era. Over in Hawaii, tourists seek out the ancient, sacred warrior spirits known as the Night Marchers. And down in Puerto Rico, they explore the candlelit, ghostly procession of La Rogativa. From tropical islands to historic snowy boardwalks, the industry of the unknown is booming everywhere. We are just fundamentally drawn to the stories that scare us.
Which really leaves us with one final, very important question. Are you ready to face your fears? Because whether you're a diehard fan of Gothic vampire lore or just a skeptic curious about the darker side of a city's history, these myths absolutely thrive. They survive centuries because they tap into our endless human fascination with the unknown. They remind us that sometimes the stories we tell each other in the dark are just as powerful as the truth itself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll get out there and explore the shadows for yourself.